International Commission of Human Rights Experts in Ethiopia finds reasonable grounds to believe that the federal government has committed crimes against humanity in Tigray region and that Tigrayan forces have committed serious human rights abuses, some amounting to war crimes. That is what the headline of the report of the human rights experts released on September 22nd. This is the latest addition to the unfair and morally biased, legally unfounded, socially unjust scrutiny that Ethiopia has been facing in regard to the conflict that the terrorist organization TPLF is perpetrating. Had it been in USA or any other European country, it would have never been negotiated and cannot be tabled. The report was collected by using telephone and consolidated by politics and finance. Hello and welcome to ETV World. I'm Tabitha John. Ethiopia has been failed once again. This time, it is the unthorough and ungrounded report by the International Commission of Human Rights Experts. Why? Who is behind this baseless report? The report presented, pursuant to Human Rights Council Resolution S-33-1, concludes that there are reasonable grounds to believe that violations such as extrajudicial killings, rape, sexual violence, and starvation of the civilian population as a method of warfare have been committed in Ethiopia since the 3rd of November 2020. Investigations said to have been carried out over a specific and manageable group of incidents and themes for which it could complete investigations in a period of 2 months. By this 2 months data gathering methodology, why do they fail to go to Afar, Amhara, and even in Tigray regional states? Do you think 2 months are enough to gather data, taking into consideration areas to be covered? What procedures did they follow other than fictitious generalization? In brief, here are the conclusions it reached from its investigations. Ethiopian National Defense Force shelled Mekele on 28 November 2020, killing and injuring civilians and striking civilian objects. Tigrayan forces killed civilians and persons rendered hors de combat, raped, looted, and damaged or destroyed civilian infrastructure and property in Kobo and China in late August and early September 2021. Human Rights Council allegedly established the commission with a mandate to conduct thorough and impartial investigations into violations and abuses of international human rights law, international humanitarian law, and international refugee law committed by the parties to the conflict. But that is not the case for the investigation, if you can call it that, the human rights experts conducted. The commission, which composed of 3 human rights experts appointed by the President of the Human Rights Council, Ms. Kari Betty Murungi, Chairperson Kenya, Mr. Stephen Ratner, United States of America, and Ms. Radhika Kumaraswamy, Sri Lanka, began its investigation in mid-June of this year. The commission carried out its investigation remotely for starters, and as the draft report itself indicates, the inquiry was made in a compromised setting. However, contradicting that very admission, it asserts that it is confident that its findings are supported by information that satisfies the standard of proof for UN investigations. What are those standards? The International Commission of Human Rights Experts in Ethiopia is implied to be built upon the Joint Investigation Team report, which investigated alleged violations of humanitarian law, human rights and refugee law committed by all parties to the conflict in the Tigray region from the 3rd of November 2020 to 28th June 2021. In its draft report, the Commission states that it carefully considered its work in relation to that of the Joint Investigation Task Force, given the strong views different stakeholders expressed to the Commission concerning the report. The federal government urged the Commission not to address the period covered by the Joint Investigation Task Force report. It also took with some of the GIT's findings. The Tigray's authorities denounced the report as incomplete, biased, or ignoring the scale of violations by different parties. The Commission's mandate does not require it to either endorse or reject the GIT report. Leaving that to the side, here's why the Commission's report is coming under fire. For starters, the central factor to any investigation or research data collection. The International Commission of Human Rights Experts in Ethiopia thought it a reliable method to gather information on grave human rights abuse allegations remotely. Frankly speaking, as they gathered data remotely, it also remote to have grain of truth. I don't think the peculiarity in that is lost on you all. This, added to other possible factors in other dimensions, makes the Commission's accusations baseless and unscientific. The report leans in on the Ethiopian National Defense Force and FANO, effectively overlooking the same, and in many instances, worse atrocities committed by the TPLF. For instance, it downplays the rape and sexual violence demonstrated by the TPLF, while on the other hand, lays out a descriptive and detailed acts of the same crime that the ENDF allegedly committed. The awe of morality and sovereign equality was downplayed when it was Ethiopia. But when September 11, the civilized and great nation was attacked. Terrorist is terrorist, anytime and anywhere. Various personalities are stepping up, speaking against this report. One is Professor Anne Fitzgerald, who insinuated that the report is weak because there were numerous empirical studies that have been done on widespread TPLF atrocities, adding that the implementation of the rule of law must be based on evidence and enabling space for other evidence must be collected. Yet this has not just happened, leading to the conclusion that the research had some issues concerning methodology and investigation to human rights atrocities and violations. Canadian international criminal law expert John Philpott called out the report, citing it to violate Ethiopian sovereignty and dishonest. On what grounds? The report's intention to overturn the findings of the previous report of the Joint Investigation Team, ignoring important aspects of the crimes committed by the TPLF as if they're trying to sweep them under the rug, and the fact that while the terrorist TPLF had committed atrocities, destruction of looting of infrastructures in Amhara and Afar regions, and have been proven yet was not brought up in this report. So, was the Commission set up to look into human rights violations or cover for the TPLF's dirty laundry? The report is focused on the Tigray and Amhara regions, which of course are sites of grave missteps and civilian collateral and human rights violations. However, as an investigative body, the scope of the Commission's investigations must have adequately covered all affected populations and regions to fairly illustrate the situation in northern Ethiopia, a fact pointed out by the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. As stated under Resolution S33-1, the mandate of the International Commission of Human Rights Experts in Ethiopia was to conduct a thorough and impartial investigation into the allegations of violations and abuses of international humanitarian law, and international refugee law in Ethiopia, committed since the 3rd of November 2020 by all parties to the conflict, by building upon the report of the Office of the High Commissioner and the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, stepping back and taking a look at what the Commission actually carried out. However, it is a testament to the bias and impartiality that presided over the so-called investigation. An international commission of human rights experts cannot be this far off the trail. I may not be an expert at human rights violations investigations, but it is fair to assume that the bare minimum is actually going to the regions you're investigating, which the commission did not. Rather, if there is anything to conclude from the report, it is that the goals of the body are politically motivated and soft on the TPLF. The International Commission of Human Rights Experts has failed not only to come up with a legitimate report, but also failed the victims that are still suffering gross human rights violations and abuses. Victims it has misrepresented, and some it has completely ignored. It is clear and clean at this point in time as who is maneuvering and manipulating the trajectory of heinous crimes committed by terrorist TPLF. When money speaks, the power of truth will be in your back pocket. Eventually, victory and history will be on the side of truth. And that, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up this segment of ETV World. Make sure to follow and subscribe to our social media for more captivating content circling on national, continental, and international issues. Goodbye for now.